You know that feeling from when you were a kid, glued to the TV, waiting for the next episode of your favorite cartoon? Yeah, Batman Beyond was exactly that for a whole generation. But this Batman, he was nothing like what we'd seen before. It wasn't the usual Bruce Wayne in a black cape with that deep voice fighting crime in Gotham. This time it was a teenager named Terry, wearing a sleek, red and black high-tech suit, flying through a futuristic Gotham filled with glowing lights and flying cars. And the best part? The original Bruce Wayne was still there, older, grumpier, and acting as the kid's mentor. In other words, they took the classic Batman formula and launched it decades into the future, mixing futuristic elements and that dark, moody vibe we all love. The result? One of DC's most underrated animated shows, one that truly deserved way more recognition. Because Batman Beyond isn't just another superhero cartoon. It's about legacy, about growing old, about passing the torch and realizing that being a hero is about a lot more than just punching bad guys. It's layered, emotional, action-packed, and full of heart. So today on the channel, Batman Beyond, the Batman we didn't know we needed, but one we've never forgotten. In the future, Gotham is a completely different place. Derek Powers has taken over Wayne Powers, and is swimming in cash, buying up everything in sight. A teenager dressed as a clown decides to cause trouble in a public elevator, but then Terry steps onto the scene. He takes the guy down and mutters the gang's name, Jokerz.
What the hell?
Jokerz.
At school, he gets into a fight with a guy named Nelson during wrestling practice, which obviously lands him in trouble. Meanwhile, Terry's father, Warren, receives a desperate message from a co-worker, Harry. The guy has strange blotches on his skin and hands Warren a disc before being dragged away by a brute named Mr. Fix. Powers calls Warren in for a little chat, claiming Tully just had an accident. He asks about the disc, but Warren plays dumb. At home, Warren looks at the disc's contents and is horrified. Terry announces he's going out, but his father forbids it, reminding him he's grounded. After a huge fight, Terry storms out and Powers' assassin, Fix, watches from the shadows, seeing his path is clear. Terry heads to a club to meet his girlfriend, Dana, but the peace doesn't last long. An entire gang of Jokers crashes the place to wreak havoc. Terry throws a few punches to defend Dana and ends up escaping on one of the clown's bikes. The chase leads Terry to an abandoned road, where he swerves to avoid an old man and crashes. Just as the Jokers close in for the kill, the old man reveals himself. It's none other than Bruce Wayne. Together, they give the gang a beatdown, but the strain is too much for Bruce's heart. Terry helps him inside Wayne Manor, and while trying to call his dad, he spots a bat trapped in a grandfather clock. As he frees the animal, he accidentally opens the secret passage to the Batcave. There, he sees the suits and figures it all out. The old man was Batman, but Bruce wakes up furious and kicks him out. When he gets home, Terry walks into a nightmare. The house is trashed and tagged with a laugh. The police inform him that his father has been murdered. After the funeral, Terry is consumed by guilt, but finds the disc and realizes something about the story doesn't add up. He returns to Wayne Manor and begs for Bruce's help, who, after being called a failure, finally opens the gate. Bruce analyzes the disc, and it's a bombshell. Wayne Powers is manufacturing a nerve gas that destroys healthy cells. We're talking next-level poison. He tells Terry to take the disc to Commissioner Barbara Gordon, but refuses to put on the cowl again. Batman is finished. Terry storms off, realizing something truly terrible must have happened for Bruce to hang up the cape. On his way out, Terry is nearly run over by Derek Powers himself and his henchman, Mr. Fix. They want the disc back. Terry pretends he's going to hand it over, but gives them the slip and manages to escape, knowing he's now a target. Later, Bruce hears the dog barking and discovers that the final bat suit is gone. He already knows who the wise guy was, and that wise guy is Terry, who clumsily flies to the Wayne Powers tower and spies on a conversation. Powers is selling the gas, and to prove it works, he shows what happened to the plants, a calf, and Terry's father's co-worker. That's when we hear the confession. It was Fix who killed Warren. The security guards spot Terry and close in. With the suit, he dodges them easily until Bruce calls, furious, demanding the suit back. Terry refuses, and Bruce simply hits a button and shuts the suit down, paralyzing the kid. The guard sees the opportunity to beat him to a pulp. Seeing that Terry is about to be killed, Bruce gives in and reactivates the suit. Bruce still wants him to return everything, but Terry insists he has to stop the gas shipment. He makes it personal, reminding Bruce of his own parents' murder. This hits a nerve, and Bruce finally agrees agrees to help. Terry heads to the docks and things get serious. He throws a batarang, but Powers shoots it out of the air. So Terry throws a gas canister. On impulse, Powers shoots it too and ends up exposing himself to his own poison. Terry chases the hovercraft, fights Fix and his electric gloves, and sends the villain crashing into the controls. The vehicle plunges into the sea, taking the gas and Fix with it to the bottom. The next morning, Bruce shows up at Terry's house and offers him a job as a part-time assistant.
Very good then, Mr. McGinnis. Welcome to my world.
Meanwhile, Powers undergoes radiation treatment to save himself. It works, but the result is bizarre. He turns into a glowing green skeleton and breaks into a fit of laughter worthy of the Joker. The night in Gotham begins with a scene straight out of a horror movie. A bizarre black blob emerges from the shadows, invades the control room of a Foxteca building, and causes a series of explosions. When the firefighters arrive, the creature simply escapes in one of their trucks. The next morning, Bruce pays a visit to Derek Powers. He's subtle, but the message is clear. Stay away from Foxteca, the company owned by Lucius Fox's son. After Bruce leaves, a black statue in the office melts into the form of a woman. It's Ink, the black blob herself. She's worried about Bruce, but Powers dismisses him as just a tired old man. That night, Terry is trying to have a normal date with Dana at a game, but duty calls. Ink is attacking another building. As Terry heads over, Bruce explains the corporate drama. Foxteca and Wayne Powers are competing for a massive contract. Batman arrives to investigate and Ink immediately attacks. With her powers to stretch and shapeshift like a dark version of Mr. Fantastic, she gives Batman a thrashing and escapes.
Was that?
Terry returns to the Batcave, complaining that he doesn't know how to use half the gear in there. Bruce ignores the whining and explains that Ink is the result of an experiment gone horribly wrong. To give him a hand, he gives Terry the key to the new Batmobile, which now flies. At the docks, Ink is ready for another sabotage mission, but Batman shows up. During the fight, Batman discovers her weakness, water, but the information doesn't help much, and he gets beaten again. Ink tells Powers that Batman is interfering with their plans. Powers becomes enraged, his synthetic skin even starting to peel, and gives her a new mission: kill Batman and whoever is helping him. That night, Batman investigates another sabotaged building, but it's a trap. Ink hides in the Batmobile. On the way back to the Batcave, Bruce notices the car is too heavy. Suddenly, Ink leaps out and chaos erupts. She nearly suffocates Batman, but Bruce saves the day with a fire hose. Ink tries to escape, but Bruce traps her with a steel door. Enraged, she brings down the ceiling, trying to crush them both with the famous giant penny. The situation is critical, but Batman manages to grab Mr. Freeze's ice gun and fires. Ink freezes solid and shatters into 1,000 pieces. Later, Commissioner Gordon receives a welcome gift from the new Batman, the pieces of ink all nicely frozen.
I keep it on ice.
We've got a typical day at school. The nerd, Willie, has a huge crush on Blade Summer, the most popular girl. But, as usual, the bully Nelson rolls up in his fancy car and pushes Willie aside. Willie tries to stand up to him but ends up getting shoved against the car. Nelson flips out over the near scratch and goes after him, but our hero Terry shows up to save the day. Later, Willie visits his father, a tough-as-nails construction foreman. There, he sees a giant construction robot, the golem. Instead of comforting his son, his dad tells him to fight back and hit Nelson where it hurts. Great fatherly advice. That night, while Batman is testing a new stealth mode, the golem is stolen. And who's piloting it? Willie himself, thirsty for revenge. He crashes Nelson and Blade's date at the mall. The second the robot appears, Nelson bails faster than the Flash, abandoning the girl. The golem crushes his car, but Batman arrives just in time to stop Willie from crushing Nelson too. Terry tricks the robot into hitting some power cables, causing it to short circuit. The shot travels through the control headband to Willie. He escapes, but realizes he now has energy coursing through his body. An upgrade. The next day, Blade, disgusted by Nelson's cowardice, asks Willie to the dance. He happily accepts. Nelson threatens Willie, but the kid feels his connection to the golem and isn't intimidated. He even uses the robot to chase off a gang. At the dance, Blade has second thoughts, and Nelson shows up to save her. He and his friends throw Willie into the ocean, but the golem is already on its way. Willie returns, soaking wet, becoming a laughingstock, and then the show begins. He summons the robot, which attacks everyone. Willie's father appears and and tells him to stop, but the boy hates his father as much as he hates Nelson and attacks him too. Batman saves the father, blinds the robot, and destroys it using an amusement park ride. Willie is sent to juvenile hall, where he's still bullied, but only until he uses his new powers to blow up a TV without even touching it. Now, the other kids are afraid of him, and Willie, he cracks a villainous smirk.
What the?
A new threat is born. Batman is investigating the Gotham docks and discovers the water is teeming with radiation. The reason soon appears: a crew dumping radioactive waste. Using his stealth mode, he takes down the entire team and through the leader's phone, discovers that the mastermind behind it all is Derek Powers. Speaking of whom, Powers is in the middle of a business deal when his skin begins to crack. He has to rush to his lab. There, a new physician, Dr. Lake, offers a bizarre solution: clone a new body and transfer his consciousness into it. But first, she wants to test it on someone else, Mr. Freeze, whose head has been frozen in a Wayne Powers vault for 50 years, literally on ice. The procedure is a success. Mr. Freeze, or Victor, gets a brand new body and can feel things again. But Bruce Wayne, with his sixth sense for trouble, doesn't trust the story and tells Terry to keep an eye on him. An assassin whose family was killed by Freeze tries to get revenge, but Batman stops him. Victor, showing he's a changed man, lets the guy go and vows to right his wrongs. He even starts a charitable foundation, but the new body came with an expiration date. Victor begins to feel an unbearable heat, and snow starts to fall around him. He's reverting. When he returns to Dr. Lake, she and Powers decide he's more valuable as biopsy parts and try to kill him. Victor escapes, enraged. As Bruce predicted, Mr. Freeze returns to Wayne Powers, now in a much more powerful suit of armor. He freezes Dr. Lake and Powers. The doctor doesn't survive, but Powers has a secret. He's a walking nuclear reactor. He melts the ice, his artificial skin falls away, and he reveals himself as Blight.
And everything I touch shall wither and die.
Victor tries to overload the generators to blow everything up, including himself. Batman tries to stop him but is attacked. Then Blight appears, and a three-way fight breaks out. Just as Blight is about to finish Batman, Mr. Freeze saves him with a super-powered ice blast. The building starts to collapse. Gravely wounded by Blight's radiation, Victor blocks Batman's path with a wall of ice, forcing him to escape while he dies in the explosion. In the end, Terry and Bruce reflect: was Victor a good man whom fate turned into a monster, or a monster who had one moment of goodness? A night of crime in Gotham. Thieves with jetpacks steal a computer chip. Batman gives chase, but is taken down. Suddenly, three new heroes emerge to save the day: a blue mist woman named Freon, a lava monster named Magma, and a super stretchy guy, 2D Man. The news introduces them as the Terrific Trio.
Magma, Freon, and the 2D Man. Who is this? Here comes the Terrific Trio.
Scientists turned government-sponsored heroes after a radiation accident, basically a budget version of the Fantastic Four. Terry wonders if Batman is still needed, but Bruce, as always, is suspicious. The trio stops a kidnapping, but the youngest hostage screams in terror at the sight of Magma. Hurt, he takes his anger out on a police car. At their base, Magma complains about being a freak. Their friend, Dr. Hodges, tries to calm him down, but later meets with General Norman, who despises the trio and is concerned about their behavior. The general's concerns are valid. Dr. Hodges discovers the trio's DNA is unstable. Magma steals the data and sees the truth. Their condition has no cure and is getting worse. Before he can explain, General Norman's forces attack the tower. The trio escapes, believing they've been betrayed, but the plot twist is worthy of a soap opera. The trio confronts Dr. Hodges, who confesses everything. He staged the accident to kill Magma and win over Freon, who was his fiancée. The plan went horribly wrong. Pushed to the edge, the trio decides to restart the experiment that created them, even if it destroys the entire city. Batman arrives to stop the madness. He manages to trap Freon and 2D Man. Magma, enraged, attacks. Batman tries to reason with him, reminding him that he's a hero. "I'm not a hero. I'm a freak accident," Magma retorts.
No, I'm an accident.
Real heroes, they make a choice.
With no other choice, Batman uses a fire hose and turns the Lava Man to stone. He deactivates the experiment and faces Dr. Hodges, the true villain of the story, who is now crying for the friends he himself destroyed. Disgusted, Batman simply turns his back and leaves. In this episode, we meet a scientist named Shriek, who presents a sonic suit that looks like something out of a sci-fi movie to his boss, Derek Powers. The idea is to use low-frequency vibrations, but Powers thinks the invention is garbage and tells Shriek to handle another problem. The company's plan to demolish a historic Gotham neighborhood to build an industrial complex. On the other side of the fight is Bruce Wayne, who calls a shareholder meeting to block the demolition. That's when Shriek, now going by the villain named Shriek, decides to make an appearance. He attacks Bruce Wayne with sound waves that make him hallucinate, hearing voices everywhere. The old Wayne ends up hospitalized, and Terry, as always, goes to investigate. He discovers the villain's suit is made of acoustium, an alloy developed in Shriek's own lab. With no time to waste, Batman tracks Shriek to a factory and neutralizes him with a sound-dampening device. Problem solved. At the meeting, the shareholders vote against the demolition, saving the neighborhood. Later, Bruce delivers the best line of the episode. He tells Terry he knew the voices were fake because they called him Bruce, and in his mind, his name isn't Bruce, it's Batman. Simply iconic. We open on the high seas with a guy in a small boat being mocked by some rich folks on a massive yacht. Their party is interrupted by a group of villains dressed as playing cards: King, Queen, Jack, Ace, and 10. They arrive on flying cards and start robbing everyone. Batman notices the commotion and heads over, but the Queen threatens to sink the yacht with everyone on board if he doesn't let her family escape. With no choice, Batman backs off. Meanwhile, Terry's personal life is a mess. He ignores Bruce's warnings to go on a date with Dana, but the two end up fighting and breaking up. At that very moment, a blonde girl appears, consoles Terry, and the two share a kiss. Her name is Melanie. Turns out, Melanie is 10, the youngest member of the Royal Flush Gang.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
During another heist, Batman confronts the gang once again, but he hesitates to strike 10 when he sees Jack holding a hostage. The gang escapes, and the king scolds her for faltering. Terry and Melanie continue to see each other, and things get serious. She tries to leave her life of crime, but her family won't let her. In the end, she breaks up with Terry over the phone, telling him he's not worth it. But Terry is Batman, right? He traces the call to her house and figures out the whole truth. He sets a trap, and when the gang returns, he defeats the Queen, Jack, Ace, and King. 10 tries to help her father, but a police officer shoots at her. Batman saves her, but since she chose the side of the villains, he hands her over to the police. In the end, as Terry watches Melanie's arrest, Bruce consoles him by telling him about an old flame of his, a certain Selena Kyle. It seems falling for villainesses runs in the Batman family. Batman is exhausted. He spends the night stopping an arms deal by the Jokerz gang and can barely stay on his feet. The next day, Terry falls asleep in class again and gets reprimanded. To make matters worse, during a school game, a player named Mason uses a patch on his arm and becomes super strong, nearly smashing an opponent through a wall. These patches, or slappers, are the new drug in town. Later, Batman confronts Mason and his friends during a robbery. Mason uses 3 patches at once, grows gigantic, and gives Batman a severe beating.
I'm ripping!
Mason's life starts to fall apart. His girlfriend breaks up with him, and he becomes addicted to the slappers. Terry's mom ends up finding some patches in his backpack and grounds him, assuming he's the user. Bruce analyzes one of the patches and discovers it contains Venom, the same substance used by Bane. Terry goes to the island where Bane lives and is in for a surprise. The villain is old, frail, and hooked up to a respirator. His caretaker, a man named Jackson, explains that this is the result of years of Venom use. Batman realizes the supplier is someone else. He follows a lead and discovers a secret factory run by Jackson himself. The caretaker covers himself in patches and becomes a giant monster, stronger than Batman. During the fight, Batman manages to knock Jackson into the slapper machine, covering his entire body with the patches. The result is a massive overdose that turns him into a mindless giant. Blinded by a trick from Batman, he ends up destroying the lab and passing out.
It's the Venom.
In the end, Bruce proves to Terry's mom that he's innocent. The real culprits are arrested, and Terry finally gets a good night's sleep.
Right, Terry.
A girl named Chelsea Cunningham, looking like she's just come from a hypnotist show, throws her father's priceless work of art into the river, all because of some creep with a glowing eye. Her father reports it, but the police think it's just teenage drama. Terry, our future Batman, decides to investigate and discovers it's not an isolated incident. An auctioneer's son was also hypnotized and stole some items. Batman quickly figures out who the villain is: Dr. Ira Billings, a school psychologist who uses virtual reality to control kids and rob their wealthy families. Basically, a Black Mirror villain in the Batman universe. During their confrontation, Billings sends Terry on a heavy hallucinatory trip, like Batman on Scarecrow's fear gas, but with a little help from Bruce Wayne in his ear, he manages to snap out of the bad trip. In the end, Batman takes care of the evil psychologist, and the guy gets arrested. The scene closes with Terry reflecting on his double life as a hero, while Bruce, as always, watches in silence with that all-knowing look on his face. In a cryogenics lab, we meet Aaron, a frustrated employee so lonely that his best friend is Ink, who is frozen in a block of ice. The guy vents all his problems to her until his boss calls him in. He thinks he's getting a promotion, but he's actually being fired because the cameras caught his conversations with the ice. Furious, Aaron shuts off the power to her cell, freeing the villainess.
Not important enough, huh?
Meanwhile, in the Batcave, Terry is eyeing a cool-looking suit of armor. Bruce explains he built it when he started getting old and weak. The armor enhances strength, but nearly gave him a heart attack. It's kind of like an Iron Man suit, but with the risk of a coronary. The alarm sounds. Ink has escaped. Terry grabs Mr. Freeze's ice gun and goes to fight, but the villainess destroys the weapon and flees. Worse, she knows the way to the Batcave. Ink teams up with Aaron, promising him a reward if he helps her get the chemicals she needs to keep from disintegrating. The pair breaks into a lab, and Aaron asks for his prize: to become a shapeshifter just like her, but Batman shows up and crashes the party. Ink captures the hero and uses him as bait to lure Bruce to an abandoned arena, and the plan works. Bruce shows up, but with a surprise. He's wearing the power armor under his coat. Ink has tricked Aaron, turning him into a formless blob. The fight between Bruce and Ink begins, and the old man proves he's still got it. In the chaos, Aaron, the sad blob, grabs onto Ink. Terry breaks free and shatters the glass ceiling, causing it to rain. The water melts Ink, who literally goes down the drain. In the end, Aaron is trapped in a glass tank, suffering the same fate as Ink. Listening to the ramblings of a clueless employee, Commissioner Gordon and her husband, District Attorney Sam Young, are on a romantic stroll when they're attacked by a blue-skinned woman with a sword that seems sharp enough to cut the wind itself. Batman arrives to save the day, but the woman, named Carrare, manages to escape. Bruce explains that she's a member of the League of Assassins and that her sword is sharpened on a molecular level. The real target is Sam, who is set to testify against an arms dealer, and then comes the bombshell. Commissioner Gordon just shows up in the Batcave. Turns out, she was Batgirl. She warns Bruce and Terry to stay out of the case. The police set a trap for Kirari at a safe house, but Batman interferes. The villainess escapes, and the operation goes down in flames. Gordon is furious with Terry, but ends up opening up about her past as Batgirl and how Bruce became such a lonely man. On the night of the trial, Bruce sends Terry to protect Sam, explaining that the League of Assassins kills its own members if they fail. Kirari attacks the train Sam and Gordon are on and corners them in a freezer car. The villainess cuts through the steel door like it's paper, and just as she's about to strike Sam, Batman appears. The fight takes place on top of a giant meat grinder. At the decisive moment, Gordon herself throws a batarang, knocking the assassin's sword into the grinder and saving everyone. Carrare is arrested, but a news report later states she has escaped. Bruce isn't worried, saying she now has other concerns. Elsewhere, Carrare is fleeing desperately in a car when a sword pierces the roof of the vehicle right next to her. The League has come to collect its debt. Derek Powers, now transformed into the walking Chernobyl known as Blight, is in hiding. Meanwhile, his son Paxton takes the throne at Wayne Powers as interim president, but people aren't happy with the company's pollution and start protesting. Powers, who never had much patience to begin with, completely loses it and shows up at a protest to attack everyone. Seeing the situation, Paxton, the heir, calls Batman for a chat and proposes an alliance to capture his own father. The plan? To use a tech grid that absorbs radiation. Sounds like a good plan, right? Well, it's not. Batman finds Powers in a nuclear submarine, but just as he's about to act, Paxton shows that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He betrays the hero and activates the sub's reactor to try to kill them both at once. But Batman is no amateur. He deactivates the system, and Powers' own reactor goes into meltdown. The submarine is blown to smithereens, and Blight is apparently turned into radioactive barbecue. For Terry, the mission is accomplished. He's finally gotten revenge for his father's death. The new trend in Gotham is splicing, basically tuning your body with animal DNA. A girl at school shows up with real cat eyes, and the whole city starts debating whether it should be legal. District Attorney Sam Young is pushing to ban the practice, claiming it makes people more aggressive. And to prove his point, a teenager with ram DNA and another with snake DNA start tearing up the city. Terry decides to investigate and heads to the Chimera Institute, the place behind this madness. The man in charge is Dr. Cuvier, a mad scientist who doesn't want his business to die. He sends his henchmen, including a tiger woman named Tigress, to take out the DA. Batman shows up to stop them but is captured and given a mysterious injection. He manages to escape but starts to feel strange. At the DA's house, the henchmen attack again. Batman appears to save the day, but he's not himself. He just snarls, foams at the mouth, and attacks everyone with savage violence. Realizing he's becoming a danger, he flees. In the Batcave, the transformation is complete, and he turns into a giant man-bat, even attacking Bruce and his dog, Ace. Bruce manages to administer an antidote, and Terry returns to normal. It turns out Cuvier injected him with an overdose of vampire bat serum. Using a claw from Cuvier that got stuck in his body, Batman uses Ace to track down the villain. The brawl resumes, and while Batman cures the henchman, Cuvier injects himself with a cocktail of DNA and becomes a chimera, a bizarre mix of various animals. The fight is intense, but Batman injects even more DNA into the villain, who transforms into a giant, formless monster. The creature explodes along with a gas tank, and this generation's Dr. Frankenstein is no more. In the end, Terry says being Batman is worth it for the small rewards, like finally earning Ace's respect. One quiet evening, Terry's friend Jackie says she feels like she's being followed. Terry, playing the hero, goes after the Stalker and discovers it's a creature made of mud that falls apart when touched. Bruce analyzes a sample and says it's just ordinary soil but tells Terry to keep an eye out. We learn that Jackie's guardian, Bill, was the business partner of her deceased father, Tony. Bill takes everyone to a vacant lot, and suddenly, several mudmen rise from the ground and attack. They only stop when Bill and Jackie flee. Then comes the backstory. 10 years ago, Bill and Tony were illegally dumping toxic waste in a mine. Things went south, one of the barrels caused a cave-in, and Tony was buried alive with the chemicals. Bill thought he was dead and raised Jackie to make up for it. It turns out the toxic waste fused Tony's DNA with the earth, turning him into the Earth Mover, kind of like Spider-Man's Sandman, but made of mud. Tony, believing he was betrayed, pulls Jackie's house and Bill underground. He wants revenge. Batman arrives to save the day and fights an army of mud dolls. In the middle of the fight, Batman throws some chemical barrels at Tony, who feels pain and loses his concentration. Batman, Bill, and Jackie try to escape in a submarine, but a giant boulder blocks the exit. In a final act of love for his daughter, Tony uses his last bit of strength to destroy the boulder, but ends up being crushed in the process. The cavern collapses, and he dies for good. In the submarine, Jackie finally accepts Bill as her true father. That's it for today's therapy session. A gang of Jokerz is out in the middle of nowhere to initiate a new member, Lee. The welcoming ritual is basically putting clown makeup on the guy near an abandoned mine. Before the fun can begin, a super advanced ship lands nearby. The vehicle's inventor, a Dr. Price, calls the pilots and panics at the readings on her gauges, telling them to abandon ship immediately. The Jokerz, who are no fools, run the pilots off the road with their bikes and steal the vehicle. Their leader, Scab, starts messing with the controls and discovers the ship has a heavy arsenal. Finders keepers. Dr. Price calls frantically, begging them to return it, but Scab hangs up on her before she can explain why. Back in the city, Scab and his crew go on a destructive joyride. They stop at a fast food joint and get a free meal by threatening the staff, showing off the ship's firepower. By sheer coincidence, Terry is there and calls the Batmobile to pursue them. The chase begins, but the Joker's ship is faster and better armed. They manage to shoot down the Batmobile. Batman survives the crash, but the gang lands to finish the job. The rookie, Lee, even questions the cowardice of ganging up on one guy, but that one guy is Batman, who proceeds to beat up everyone. Just as Scab is about to fire on Batman with the ship's weapons, Dr. Price appears in her own vehicle and saves the hero. She reveals the big problem. The stolen ship is powered by a nuclear reactor that was damaged and is going to explode. It's like a faulty microwave, but on a citywide scale. They find another gang, the T's, all beaten up, and discover the Jokerz' plan is to eliminate their leader. Batman goes to the T's HQ and tells everyone to clear out. Soon after, the ship arrives, guns blazing. Batman ties a cable to the ship, secures the other end to a girder, and throws gas grenades into the cockpit. In a panic, Scab tries to take off. The cable snaps taut, and the ship comes crashing down. Inside the wreckage, as Batman tries to shut down the reactor, Scab attacks him. He refuses to listen about the explosion, saying the ship is his ticket to power. Lee overhears everything, and seeing that his leader doesn't care about the gang, knocks Scab out. Batman finally shuts down the reactor. Lee, fed up, throws away his clown nose and quits the gang. Scab wakes up and, seeing that his ship no longer works, throws a tantrum worthy of a defeated villain. We learn the story of Robert Vance, the owner of a tech megacorporation who, before dying, digitized his mind to become a sort of ghost advisor for future owners. Think of a 1980s Jarvis, but with ulterior motives. 35 years later, his grandson Bobby reactivates the program. The boy doesn't feel ready to take over the company, and his digital grandfather convinces him to put the program online. Horrible idea. The entire city starts experiencing bizarre glitches. Terry and Dana are nearly turned into pancakes in a runaway elevator. Bruce explains that the program is siphoning information from the network and causing chaos. He sends Batman to the power plant that the program has taken over. Batman tries to shut down the power, but he's struck by a laser beam. He thinks everything is fine, but Vance's program has just downloaded itself into the suit. Later, the suit starts to malfunction and stops responding. Vance's voice comes through the communicator, saying he will use the suit to find a new body. The robot Batman starts walking on its own towards the ocean. Bruce, realizing what's happening, activates an emergency kill switch that shuts down the suit, saving Terry from drowning. In the Batcave, as they plan to fix the suit, the armor simply gets up and walks away. Exorcist mode activated. Bruce, seeing that Terry won't give up, hands him his old utility belt and a mask that once belonged to Nightwing.
Take this. It's got some things you might be able to use.
I'm still going.
The possessed suit finds Bobby and preps him for a bizarre surgery, transferring the grandfather's mind into the grandson's body, erasing Bobby in the process. Terry arrives just in time and realizes that an electromagnetic field disrupts the suit's control. During the fight, Terry takes a beating but uses his head. He grabs a metal rod, wraps a power cable around it, and shoves it into the suit, causing an overload that fries Vance's program for good. In the end, Bobby decides to sell the company to let his grandfather rest in peace. Terry asks Bruce if he'll get a vacation while the suit is being repaired, but Bruce, now more impressed with the kid, replies, "The suit is out of commission, but Batman isn't." No days off for the hero. A new Jokerz kingpin, a guy in zombie makeup named Terminal, terrorizes a businessman on a train. He's so vicious that even his own gang members are scared of him. After unleashing a set of sharp, chattering dentures on the man, he and his crew bail, leaving the victim nearly falling off the train. Luckily, Batman shows up to save the day. At school, the results of a standardized test are out. A girl named Max gets a perfect score, while Terry didn't even manage to finish the test. Max, a certified genius, reveals she's creating a program to uncover Batman's secret identity. Terry starts sweating bullets. The second highest score on the test went to Carter Wilson, the class president. At home, his mother belittles him for not being first. Shortly after, we see Carter putting on makeup, revealing himself as Terminal. Parental pressure leading to a supervillain career.
Terminal.
He and his gang break into the school to erase the test scores. The next day, Max suspects the attack was targeted and adapts her program to figure out the Joker's leader's identity. That night, the gang lures Batman into a chase while Terminal goes after Max at the school. Batman realizes it's a trap and gets back just in time to save her from cleaning robots reprogrammed to attack with acid. Max's program finally generates a list of suspects for Batman's identity, and Terry's name is on it. She sends him an email saying she knows his secret and sets up a meeting. Terry panics and goes to the location as Batman. At the park, Terminal corners Max. Thinking he's Terry, she calls him by his name, but the villain just laughs. Max realizes her mistake and Batman arrives for the brawl. In a clever twist, Max helps defeat Terminal by causing a giant decorative ball from a fountain to roll over and crush him. The makeup washes off, revealing the villain is Carter. The next day, Max confronts Terry. She admits her program was wrong about the villain but right about the hero. She knows he's Batman. She promises to keep his his secret and offers to help. To prove her worth, she improvises an excuse for Dana on the spot, covering for Terry's disappearance. She lays down one rule: don't call her Robin. He agrees. Alfred, a new dynamic duo is born.
Alfred.
Alfred?
At a Gotham hotel, a mysterious man checks into the presidential suite. He ignores everything the hotel staff offers, wanting only privacy. As he admires the city, a mosquito bites him. Pissed off, the man pulls out a blowgun and hits the insect with sinister precision. Meanwhile, Batman is on his nightly routine, dishing out some pain to car thieves. In the middle of the action, Bruce reminds him of a favor for his mother, but when morning comes, Terry completely forgets and gets an earful for not helping at home. At night, the man, known as Stalker, performs a bizarre ritual, painting his body and drawing animal symbols, including Batman's. He breaks into an art gallery, and Batman, of course, crashes the party. Stalker attacks from the shadows, and a quick brawl ensues where Batman realizes the guy is much stronger than he looks. Still, Batman gets the upper hand, until Stalker throws a grenade that temporarily blinds him and vanishes into thin air. A little later, Terry is late again and has to take his brother, Matt, to dinner. Little does he know, Stalker is on his tail, and through the hunter's electronic eye, Terry glows like a Christmas tree. At the restaurant, he spots Stalker, leaves his brother with Max, and bolts through the city. The police don't believe his story about a guy with a spear, but Stalker shows up and quickly handles the problem, knocking out the cops. Terry manages to escape by tricking the villain, giving his jacket to a homeless man, but the relief is short-lived. Matt has been kidnapped. Bruce discovers that the powder Stalker used was phosphorus, a sort of primitive GPS. In the villain's lair, we learn his backstory. He was a big game hunter who was attacked by a panther, nearly died, and was given a bionic spine that made him superhumanly strong. He got his revenge on the panther, but found it too easy, and now wants a real challenge. Batman. Batman arrives to find a suite has been turned into a jungle full of traps. The fight is intense, with Batman falling into trap after trap, but he manages to trick Stalker and get his spear stuck in an electrical system. The shock damages the villain's bionic spine, causing him to hallucinate, seeing Batman as the panther that attacked him. Terrified, he jumps onto the train tracks, sees an oncoming train as the panther, and, well, Batman even turns his head. In the end, Matt returns home, excitedly telling the story, but his mother thinks he's making it up. To top it off, he even says Batman is cool, and Terry's a loser. We open on a poker game with the cream of the crop of Gotham's underworld. The calm is shattered when 10, from the Royal Flush Gang, crashes the party with an explosive card and makes off with the money from the table. During her escape, her glider is destroyed and a firefight breaks out. This gets Batman's attention, who shows up and saves her skin from the furious mobsters. Terry tells Bruce, who thinks 10 is just a greedy thief, but Terry, with his heart of gold, believes she's desperate. And what do you know? Melanie herself, 10, shows up at Terry's house. She tells a sob story. The Jokerz have kidnapped her family and want the poker money as ransom. Terry, a sucker as always when it comes to her, believes her, and even ditches Dana to help. As Batman, he finds 10 ready to rob the game again. After a brief scuffle, he decides to trust her, and the two head to the Joker's hideout for the rescue. But during the fight against the clowns, 10 simply abandons Batman. He soon discovers the Joker's knew nothing about any kidnapping. The Batcave has to send the Batmobile to bail him out of the jam. Meanwhile, 10 manages to steal the money and goes to deliver the ransom, only to find that the victims are the king and queen, her parents. It was all a loyalty test. She's devastated to realize her parents don't love her, and that she no longer wants this life of crime. Batman arrives, and the fight begins. To make matters worse, the mobsters from the poker game show up, guns blazing, looking for revenge. In the chaos, 10 disappears. Batman, who's no fool, had already called the police, who arrest the Royal Flush Gang and the mobsters. Later, Terry and Dana are at a club. Terry finds the note 10 left for Batman to give to him, and, determined to move on, throws it away without even reading it. We meet Donnie, a teenager living the life of a rock star, except it's inside a virtual reality booth. The owner of the place, a guy called the Spellbinder, shuts off the machine and says the fun is over until he pays up. At school, Terry is completely wiped out after another busy night. Max suggests she could help him with his nightly activities, but he shuts her down immediately. At night, Batman finds Donnie, who has run away from home, mugging people to support his VR addiction. A chase ensues, but Batman has to give up to prevent a traffic accident. Meanwhile, another of Spellbinder's clients falls into a coma. The villain orders his goons to dump her body and find new clients. Bruce realizes this is connected to a wave of missing teens who have been found comatose. Terry reluctantly takes Max to investigate Donnie's house. The place is a dump, and Terry finds a card with multiple charges messages from a VR arcade. They go to the arcade, and the villain's recruiters convince Max to try a real version of VR. Terry is suspicious, but Max, curious, goes ahead and ends up being taken. In her fantasy, she lives in a perfect world with a loving family, and the addiction is instant. It gets so bad that Batman finds her stealing a car to get more money. He convinces her to go home and gets a glimpse into her real lonely life. But while Terry calls Bruce, Max knocks him out with a cheap shot and runs back to her addiction. Terry recovers, follows Donnie, and finds Spellbinder's lair. He shuts off Max's machine, and she's furious with him for ruining her dream. That's when the villain appears and knocks Batman out. Spellbinder is about to fry Batman's brain with his device, but Max, seeing her friend in danger, snaps out of her trance, smashes the machine, and takes down the villain. With Spellbinder arrested, the victims can be treated. Max apologizes, but Terry tells her it's okay. After all, she proved she can be a partner. But let's take it slower, he says, opening the door to a new dynamic between them. A sensationalist news report starts spreading panic. Giant, man-eating rats are supposedly in Gotham's sewers. Most people dismiss it as an urban legend, like something out of a campfire story. Meanwhile, Terry, as usual, is late to meet Dana. She's fed up with his constant cancellations and broken promises and storms off. Little did she know her boyfriend's tardiness would be the least of her problems. Later, while walking alone, Dana simply vanishes. Her parents go after Terry, desperate to know where she is, and panic sets in. Bruce Wayne, acting as Batman's personal GPS, sends Terry underground. There, they find Dana, held captive by a guy named Patrick. He calls himself Rat Boy, lives in the sewers, and collects trash like a hoarder. Patrick, who has bullied his whole life, believes Dana is the only one who understands him. Terry, now suited up as Batman, storms the guy's lair. During the fight, Patrick unleashes his giant rats on the Bat, proving the urban legend wasn't so legendary after all. Terry doesn't think twice and causes an explosion that collapses part of the sewer. Dana is rescued, and Patrick is buried in the rubble. In the end, Dana forgives Terry, finally realizing that his double life involves more than just being late for dates. Terry is minding his own business when he suddenly starts receiving a kind of mental spam. A girl named Tamara is desperately calling for help, repeating the same message in his head. He traces the psychic call to Gotham Park Towers. Bruce, who is basically a human Google, identifies the girl as Tamara Calder, reported missing after being recruited by a supposed special school. Soon, Terry and Bruce discover that the school was just a front for the Brain Trust, a secret group that kidnaps gifted youngsters, like an evil version of the X-Men. Tamara makes contact again, warning that she's on a boat being transported. With the new location via brain Wi-Fi, Batman finds the vessel. On board, he comes face to face with a villainess named Bombshell, who, to no one's surprise, has explosive powers. The fight is intense, but Tamara doesn't just stand by. She uses her own psychic powers to pull a Professor X and mess with Bombshell's mind. This gives Batman the perfect opening to neutralize her. Tamara is rescued and reunited with her parents, now in protective custody and with specialized help to handle her powers, without the risk of being turned into a villain's weapon. Bizarre, poltergeist-style things start happening at Hamilton Hill High. Vandalized trophies, overturned furniture, and cryptic messages written on fogged-up mirrors. The students, of course, blame the ghost of Garrison Jacobs, a student who died during a school construction project. Terry, being the skeptic of the group, suspects it's all a setup. During a seance to summon the supposed ghost, the school bully, Nelson, is attacked by an invisible force. Later, a romantic message appears on the shower wall of the girls' locker room, apparently for a girl named Blade. That's when something clicks in Terry's memory. He remembers Willie, a former student who gained Carrie-like telekinetic powers after an accident. Terry visits Willie in juvenile detention and discovers the nerdy kid is now buff. Willie denies everything but makes some subtle threats. Terry figures it all out. Willie is using his powers remotely to haunt the school and get revenge on those who bullied him. Nelson, Blade, and even the coach. To handle the situation, Terry gets a court order to shut down the school. With the building empty, Willie attacks. Batman confronts him, and instead of fighting, uses a special tranquilizer to knock the kid out. Willie is taken back into custody, and later, we see Terry comforting his brother Matt, who misses their father, saying that memories keep him alive. Batman and Robin, or rather Terry and Bruce, are arguing about an old beef with Mad Stan while picking shrapnel out of the suit. Suddenly, Gotham's animals go completely berserk, like a scene from a horror movie. Even Ace, Bruce's dog, attacks them. Bruce, being the genius he is, immediately figures out it's some kind of sonic interference, and the prime suspect is Shriek. In his hideout, Shriek reveals his plan to a henchman. It's not about money, it's about revenge against Batman. The guy is using a sound system that covers the entire city and issues an ultimatum: either hand over the bat by midnight at Hill Square, or the city will go completely insane. Barbara Gordon mobilizes the police, but Bruce, in full overprotective dad mode, insists on going in Terry's place. Of course, Terry ignores his boss and goes to the fight anyway. He discovers that Shriek is using the city's communication towers as giant amplifiers for his sound of chaos. The fight begins and Terry manages to disable the equipment. The result? The towers collapse on Shriek himself. How ironic. In the end, Terry and Bruce have a heart-to-heart about the sacrifices of being a hero, the kind of deep post-brawl chat we've come to expect. Batman is training in the Batcave, smashing robots of the Riddler, Two-Face, and Killer Croc. Bruce, acting like a coach, complains that he has no subtlety. At school, we meet Howard, a guy desperately trying to be popular by throwing a party, but no one cares. His dream? A cool girlfriend and social status. Terry takes Howard to a synthetics factory, and of course the guy gets the brilliant idea to illegally order a robot girlfriend. His only personality requirement: totally loyal to me. What could possibly go wrong?
She's gotta be completely devoted to me and the coolest green eyes.
The next day, the synth, Cynthia, shows up and becomes the talk of the school, but she only has eyes for Howard. A bully named Nelson gets jealous, and Cynthia, overhearing his plans, gets furious. Things escalate quickly. Cynthia nearly crushes Nelson with a set of lockers. Terry investigates and finds super strong handprints, but no fingerprints. With Cynthia by his side, Howard's party is a huge hit, but the robot girlfriend has psycho-level jealousy and nearly attacks another girl. That night, all hell breaks loose. While Batman busts the creator of the synths, Howard tries to break up with Cynthia at the party. Bad idea. She freaks out and starts destroying everything. Batman arrives to the rescue, but the fight is tough. In desperation, Howard tries to put Cynthia in the friend zone, which fries her circuits. She explodes, taking the whole house with her. Howard actually becomes popular for the legendary party, but his parents arrive, furious about their destroyed house and maxed out credit card. The next episode kicks off with Batman messing up. He sees what looks like an illegal deal, goes in hot, and ends up ruining a year-long undercover police operation. Commissioner Barbara Gordon is furious and warns Bruce one more screw-up from Terry, and his career as Batman is over. Shortly after, during a gala dinner, Mad Stan shows up to cause chaos. Batman arrives to fight him, and the brawl spills into the parking garage. That's when everything turns upside down. Barbara sees Batman supposedly crush Stan's head with a bomb. The villain is declared dead. Now, Batman is public enemy number 1. Barbara orders Terry's arrest and confronts Bruce, threatening to expose everyone's secret identity. In hiding, Terry swears he's innocent. Bruce decides to believe him when he sees the security footage was tampered with right at the moment of the crime. Batman breaks into the morgue, but Stan's body is gone. He's cornered by the police, but escapes. Bruce guides him to a tunnel, but Barbara is already waiting for him. At the last second, Bruce's computer clears up the video, revealing an invisible figure at the scene. It was Spellbinder. Batman uses a batarang to reveal the villain, who confesses to using his tech to fool Barbara. He mocks her, saying it was easy since she was ready to believe the worst. In the end, Barbara apologizes, and Bruce explains that the real Mad Stan was found alive, having a blast at a VR arcade, blowing up City Hall in a video game. A private jet makes a quick landing for repairs. The passenger, the Assassin Master, head of the Society of Assassins. He's clearly nervous about setting foot on solid ground, and he has good reason. Karari boards the plane, and as soon as it takes off, attacks. The Master manages to defend himself with some throwing stars, but Karari throws a capsule that releases a gas and wipes his mind. Game over. Then, she simply jumps out of the plane. In Gotham, someone takes a shot at the Batmobile. The shooter is Mutro, the last surviving member of the Society. He explains that Carrare failed a mission. The Society ordered her termination, but the assassin turned the tables and hunted everyone down. Now, he's next, and needs Batman's protection. Batman isn't keen on helping an assassin, but Mutro has an ace up his sleeve, a bomb in the city, with a 12-hour timer that only he can disarm. Batman talks to Max, who's dying to help. He tells her to call Bruce Wayne, but it's obvious she's not going to sit still. While Batman follows Mutro, he discovers that Max broke into the guy's hotel room to look for clues. And who shows up right behind her? Carrare herself. The assassin attacks, and Max hides in the bathroom, but she's cornered. Terry hears a scream over the phone and flies back. He finds Max terrified but alive. She tells him Carrare stopped as soon as she recognized her. Meanwhile, Carrare attacks Mutro in a park and also wipes his mind. Terry arrives and finds the bomb's controller, which now shows only 3 hours left. Max feels guilty, but Terry tells her to forget it. The bomb is the priority. And then comes Max's stroke of genius. The remote control only has a 3-kilometer range. She triangulates the locations where Mutro used the device, cross-references it with purchases on a credit card she swiped, and bingo. The Gotham Museum of Armaments. At the museum, Carrare attacks again. The bomb detector breaks, time is running out, and Max spots the bomb inside an old casing. Not knowing what to do, she just rips out all the wires, and it actually works. Terry defeats Carrare, and in the end, the two are patching up their wounds. Max asks how he can stand being an unsung hero, and Terry smiles and says he has her. Batman is on patrol when a runaway truck appears. He stops the vehicle and discovers the driver is Sean Miller, a classmate. This chase becomes a commercial for a teen rehab clinic run by Dr. David Wheeler. The clinic becomes trendy, and parents start sending their kids there for the slightest infraction, leaving Terry's school practically empty. His friend Chelsea complains via email, and her father uses it as an excuse to check her in. Terry finds the whole thing very suspicious. At the clinic, which looks more like a farm, Chelsea finds Sean acting like a pit bull and a friend. Adam, totally zoned out, painting a blank canvas with no paint. Sean tells her he's under the effect of the ISO. The class is pure psychological terror. Students stand for hours listening to Wheeler yell that they're worthless. Anyone who complains goes to the ISO. Bruce confirms it's brainwashing. Terry decides to infiltrate as himself with a plastic camera. The security guard confiscates his backpack, which contains the batsuit. Using a distraction, he gets inside and manages to record Chelsea, who tells him everything about the abusive conditions and the ISO, a sensory deprivation tank that leaves you completely isolated. She breaks down, desperate. On his way out, Sean starts a fight. Wheeler shows up, finds the camera, and locks Terry up. In his cell, Terry convinces Sean to team up to escape. On their way to the ISO tanks, they attack the guards, flee, and free all the other students. Terry grabs his suit and, as Batman, helps the kids overpower the security guards. But things get serious when Sean dangles Wheeler from a wall. Batman tries to talk him down, calling him a hero, but Sean laughs and lets the man go, forcing Batman to save him. The police and parents arrive. Chelsea gives her father the cold shoulder, and Sean, despite having helped, is arrested. The lesson is a bitter one. The clinic was a scam, but the kids' problems are very real. We're at Jared's birthday party. His stepfather Jim gives him a brand new car as a present. Happy family. Everything's perfect, right? Wrong. Shortly after, Jim is fired. His division at Wayne Powers, Light Arms, has been shut down. Desperate and jobless, he runs into an old acquaintance, Istvan, who makes him a tempting offer: sell the design for a powerful sonic weapon to a foreign country. Using his special forces training, Jim breaks into Wayne Powers, masked and wearing a combat suit. He escapes from the police and Batman, and the media dubs him the Armory. Jared comments to Terry and Max that his step-down is acting weird, and Terry starts connecting the dots. Jim pulls a second heist to get the remaining parts and escapes again. Jared can't contain his curiosity and sneaks into his stepfather's workshop. He hides just as Jim arrives with Istvan. Jim assembles the weapon, but a spider gives away Jared's hiding spot. His mother shows up too, and the secret is out. Jim swears he did it all for the family, but they don't buy it. Batman arrives just in time. Istvan grabs the sonic weapon, blasts a hole in the wall, and goes after the bat. He brings the tower down on Batman and prepares to deliver the final blow. But who saves the day? Jim. He shoots Istvan with a glue rifle, incapacitating him. He says the war is over and they both lost. Istvan goes after Jim, but Batman, now free, stops him while Jim hugs his family. At school, Jared says that Jim cooperated with the police and got a lighter sentence. The family is broke, but together. And to cheer his friend up, Max, who was previously jealous of his money, even flirts a little with Jared. In this episode, we meet Ian, the host of a gossip show that's basically the TMZ of Gotham. His job is to expose everyone's dirty laundry, from celebrities to the Tong gang. In the middle of an investigation, he discovers that a Wayne Power scientist, Nobuo Taka, has created a crazy theory called vibrospace, which allows one to phase through solid objects. Basically, a real-life ghost mode. Ian, who is no fool, decides this technology is perfect for his gossip show. He gets his hands on the prototype, a high-tech belt, and starts walking through walls to uncover the city's biggest secrets. And of course, his main target would be Gotham's greatest mystery. He manages to infiltrate the Batcave, films everything, and discovers the secret identities of Bruce and Terry. His plan? To reveal everything to the world, live, on his next show. But he didn't count on our Batman's cunning. Terry manages to intercept Ian's broadcast signal, canceling the bombshell revelation before it airs. And as if that weren't enough, the belt's technology starts to malfunction. Ian loses control and becomes permanently intangible, unable to touch anything ever again. The episode ends with him falling endlessly toward the center of the earth, on a one-way trip thanks to gravity. Instant karma. Here we have Mom Mayhem and her sons, a family of criminals that seems straight out of a Disney movie, if Disney made movies about burglars. They're after a specific set of rubies that the matriarch and her late husband tried to steal years ago. It's like a family mission to finish what they started. Meanwhile, Terry is dealing with a much more down-to-earth problem, a school project. He and Blight have to take care of an electronic egg baby, the kind that cries and needs constant attention. Basically, a parenting simulator on easy mode. Ma Mayhem continues her hunt, stealing a necklace at an auction and planning her next hit, the Museum of Fashion. Terry, as Batman, starts investigating, but things get complicated during the museum heist. In the midst of the chaos, Ma Mayhem's sons end up taking the egg baby along with the jewels, without even realizing it. Now the mission is personal. Using the Batmobile's tech, Terry doesn't track a phone or a GPS, but the cry of the electronic egg. He locates the gang's hideout, defeats the henchmen, recovers his child, and stops Ma from destroying the final ruby. In the end, Terry and Blade get the highest grade in the class for taking such good care of the baby. Get ready to meet Zeta, a tactical infiltration android who is basically a Terminator created by the NSA. But there's a catch. After a mission, he simply decides he no longer wants to be a killing machine and goes rogue. Now, he's on the run from his creators, led by the relentless Agent Bennett. On the run, Zeta hides out in the school, and to get access to a lab, kidnaps Max. But the situation isn't what it seems. Max soon discovers that Zeta isn't a threat. He just wants to be free of his violent programming. He's a robot with a crisis of conscience. Batman obviously shows up to intervene, and the confrontation takes place at a train station. It's there that Zeta proves he's truly changed. During the commotion, he has the chance to eliminate an innocent hostage to escape, but chooses to spare the man's life. This act convinces Batman that Zeta is not just another villain. Using his artificial intelligence, Zeta fakes a signal to trick the NSA into thinking he's been destroyed and flees on a train.
Get down there! Retrieve the synthoid! Come on, let's go.
Batman, understanding the situation, decides not to capture him, but promises to keep an eye on him from a distance, leaving the door open for the pacifist android's future. While one character vanishes into the darkness, another emerges to cause trouble. Nelson returns from a trip with a not-so-nice souvenir, a vial containing a deadly virus. Right off the bat, an agent named False Face, who is a master of disguise, attacks Nelson to get the virus. But Batman, who never takes a day off, shows up to crash the villain's party. Then comes the intel. The so-called False Face works for Cobra, a terrorist organization that wants to turn Gotham into a scene from The Last of Us by releasing the virus in the city. To handle this mess, Batman decides he needs help and teams up with Stalker, a relentless hunter who looks like he walks straight out of a Predator movie. The dynamic duo raids a Cobra base and manages to retrieve the vial. Mission accomplished, right? Wrong. Cobra had a movie villain-worthy backup plan. They had already infected Nelson himself. The guy has become a walking biological time bomb. And now, how do you find one guy in a crowd? Stalker, who is nobody's fool, uses his hunting skills and identifies Nelson by the unique signature of one of his own grenades. With the target located, Batman acts with lightning speed and manages to contain poor Nelson before he can sneeze and kick off the apocalypse in Gotham. After the virus mission, Batman realizes that parts of his suit have been stolen, and whoever messes with the Batsuit messes with Batman. The investigation leads him to Dr. Peter, a prosthetics expert. The doctor doesn't mince words and comes clean. He's being being blackmailed by a criminal named Bullwhip and his gang. The reason? The gang kidnapped his wife, April, and forced him to turn them into cyborgs, like a cheap, evil version of RoboCop. A quick flashback shows the Doctor's dilemma, having to operate on the thugs to keep his wife alive. Batman, of course, locates the gang's hideout, but Dr. Peter, even under pressure, was smarter. He installed a failsafe in each of the cyborgs. During the confrontation, a cocky Bullwhip demands more upgrades from the Doctor. That's when Batman makes his entrance. But instead of throwing punches, all he needs to do is say the keyword, April Moon. Instantly, the cyborgs shut down as if their batteries died. Bullwhip manages to escape, taking April with him as a hostage. Dr. Peter is left behind, knowing the nightmare isn't over yet. After all, the criminal will be back for more modifications, like an annoying client demanding revisions on a project. We start in the middle of a futuristic VR game. Centuries of the last cosmos. Three friends, Max, Terry, and Corey, are blasting enemy ships. Corey, the most addicted of the group, achieves the highest score of all time. The problem is, outside the game, his life isn't so heroic. Little does he know that a real sentry is watching him. At school, Corey gets an email from Simon Harper, the game's creator, inviting him to his private mansion. It's basically every nerd's dream come true. Once there, Corey and two other top players find themselves in a gamer's paradise. The weapons, the vehicles, everything from the game is there. Harper appears and drops the bomb. The game is actually a test to recruit real warriors. He invites them to join the Sentries. Their first mission? To break into the Gotham Hall of Records and destroy files supposedly infected by a so-called Dark Regent. Batman tries to stop them, but the three, equipped with energy swords and flying saucers, handle the bat and complete the mission. Terry and Max find Corey's behavior strange, and Batman himself goes to investigate Harper's mansion, where Harper plays dumb. Harper then gives his sentries their next mission: eliminate the Dark Regent's human form, a man named Eldon Michaels. Batman finds Michaels first and discovers he's just a normal, scared guy. Before he can explain the whole story, the sentries capture him, but Batman manages to grab an envelope Michaels tried to hand him. At the mansion, Harper is furious that they didn't kill Michaels and decides to do the job himself, shooting lightning from his hands like Emperor Palpatine. Just then, Batman appears and reveals the contents of the envelope, the game's original story, written by Michaels. Harper was just the business partner who stole the idea to get all the fame and money. The records the boys destroyed were the original contracts. Realizing they've been duped, the Sentries turn on their false master. In the end, the boys seek out Michaels, the true creator, eager to hear the stories of the universe they love so much, now told by the real wise one. We meet a teenager named Drew, stuck at work because his boss, Warren, is a pain and forced him to work overtime. Suddenly, a bizarre guy walks into the shop, wrapped head to toe in black bandages like a goth mummy. Warren, the clueless boss, makes fun of the guy, who gets pissed, locks the door, and attacks him. In a panic, Warren tries to offer the cash from the register, but the mummy man doesn't care. He says he's there to avenge the young people Warren disrespects. Just as he's about to finish the boss off with a laser whip, Batman shows up and recognizes him as Payback. Payback tries to play it off like he's an ally, but when Batman doesn't fall for it, he instantly turns hostile. After a quick fight, the villain escapes, and Batman saves Warren, who doesn't even bother to say thanks.
This place. You couldn't fight the guy outside?
In the Batcave, Bruce chews Terry out for letting the guy get away and discovers that all of Payback's victims have kids at a youth counseling center. Guess what Terry's new mission is? Go undercover at the center, pretending his problem is Bruce. There, Terry meets the group and the people in charge, Dr. Stanton and his son Kenny, whom the father constantly ignores. Terry uses a distraction to hack the doctor's computer, but gets knocked out and wakes up to the doctor and another kid, Howard, looking down at him. Terry makes up an excuse and slips away. The first suspicion falls on Howard, and Batman goes after him. He even finds the whip, but Howard is innocent. The real trouble starts when Payback attacks another kid, and Batman has to save him. To set a trap, Terry pretends to complain about Bruce in therapy and accidentally reveals that he's going to a party at a hotel. The plan works. Payback attacks Bruce in the elevator, but Batman arrives just in time to save the day. The fight destroys part of the building, and in the middle of the chaos, the villain's mask falls off. Guess who it was? Kenny, the doctor's son. His motive? He thought that if he solved the patient's problems, his father would finally have time for him. Episode 38 kicks off with a mystery. Terry's missing. The only clue is that his bed is made, something that, let's be honest, never happens. While his mom, brother, and friends worry, we find out Terry has woken up in an abandoned subway shelter. He was saved by a runaway kid named Dak, but they're both being hunted by a villain named Shriek. Dak, who trusts no one, tries to blow a hole in a wall to escape, but the plan backfires and nearly floods the entire place. Terry manages to convince him to trust him to go get help. Meanwhile, on the surface, Bruce Wayne goes full detective mode. He finds Terry's backpack with some kids, buys it back, and, like a human GPS, figures out exactly where he is. The situation gets tight when Shriek captures Dak and uses him as bait, announcing on the radio that he'll kill the hostage if Batman doesn't surrender. It's classic villain blackmail. But Bruce isn't just anyone. Knowing Terry is trapped and without the suit, he comes up with a brilliant plan. He triggers a false collapse alarm at the location. This draws in security and creates the perfect distraction for Terry to escape in the confusion. Now, suited up as Batman, he comes back with a vengeance. He rescues Dak and lays a beatdown on Shriek, putting an end to the hunt. Back at home, Terry's mom is stunned to see him making his bed of his own free will. Looks like the near-death experience taught him something. Terry is out walking Ace, Bruce's dog, when the dog just loses it. He spots a strange man, breaks his leash, and bolts after the guy, disappearing in the process. Bruce, using Terry's description, identifies the man, Ronnie Boxer, a scumbag known for running illegal dogfighting rings. The disgust is immediate. While Bruce calls the police, Terry comes up with his own plan: infiltrate the fighting underworld by pretending to be a kid looking to sell a vicious dog. The episode then jumps into a flashback to tell Ace's story. He was just a puppy when he was illegally sold to Boxer and spent his life being abused to become a fighting machine. One day during a police raid, Ace managed to escape and became a street dog. It was on a cold night that he found Bruce Wayne and saved him from an attack by a member of the Jokerz gang. Bruce, seeing the injured dog, took him home. Back in the present, Terry's plan leads him to Boxer's hideout, which is now a bizarre lab full of animal growth hormones. The whole setup is sinister. To make matters worse, Ace is captured by animal control and, through a corrupt employee, is sold right back to his former tormentor, Boxer. Fate can be pretty cruel sometimes. As Batman, Terry tracks the new fighting arena to a cargo ship, but Boxer sees him coming and sets a trap. As soon as Batman enters, the door slams shut, and he's introduced to an experiment gone wrong, a creature that was once a dog but is now a deformed, elephant-sized monster.
One of your Sarah Stone creations.
During the fight, Ace manages to break out of his cage. The monster swallows Batman whole, but Ace, the true hero of the day, attacks the creature, forcing it to spit Terry out. Seizing the opportunity, Batman electrocutes the monster. In the end, Terry and Ace return to the mansion, where the dog happily runs into Bruce's arms. A happy ending for man's best friend. The Royal Flush Gang is back, but it looks like they left their brains at home. Without 10, their security expert, they try to rob a museum and fail miserably. Jack, the leader's son, points out the obvious, gets chewed out by his dad, and ends up accidentally tripping the alarm. Batman crashes the party, and the fight is on. In the chaos, the Ace robot is damaged, and Jack is captured. The King and Queen manage to escape with an onyx statue, but they even screw that up, breaking the piece's ear. At the police station, Jack plays dumb, but Bruce Wayne already knows who ordered the heist: Paxton Powers. The King goes to deliver the statue and gets ripped off by Paxton, who complains about the broken ear and pays him peanuts. The King tries to argue and gets beaten up by Paxton's assistant. At home, the Queen throws it in her husband's face that they've hit rock bottom, comparing him to her father. With his ego bruised, the King moves on to plan B: kidnap Paxton himself and demand a $20 million ransom. Meanwhile, Melanie, the former 10, is working as a chef. She sees the news about the kidnapping, and Batman shows up to question her. She swears she knows nothing and that her family has forgotten her. She even asks if Batman delivered a note to Terry, but from his lack of response, she assumes Terry doesn't care about her either. The ransom plan goes south when Bruce informs them that the company policy, written by Paxton himself, forbids paying for kidnappings. Out of options, Paxton offers a piece from his stolen art collection and, for good measure, suggests the gang kill Bruce. The King agrees instantly, but it's all a trap. Batman is knocked out by Ace, and the King attacks Bruce, who defends himself. In the middle of the fight, the King abandons the Queen and flees with the money, but the Queen's revenge is a dish best served cold. She follows the King to his hideout, where he's with Paxton's assistant, and attacks. Batman, who followed the Queen, arrives and arrests everyone. In the end, Melanie uses the money she saved up to bail out her brother, and the two start a new life together. A mysterious figure, who looks like a floating ghost, breaks into a research center. The guards' bullets don't even tickle him, and he passes through electric fields like they're smoke. His power is a force field that repels everything. Batman shows up to stop him, but his gadgets are useless, and he's thrown against a wall. The intruder, nicknamed Repulsor, steals an unstable isotope and takes off flying. During the chase, Batman has to stop to save civilians from a falling billboard, and the villain gets away. Back in the Batcave, Bruce explains he's seen something like this before. They go to a Wayne Powers medical clinic for people with compromised immune systems. There, Dr. Suzuki shows them the solution: rings that create a matter-repelling aura, basically the same tech as the villains. Terry meets a girl, Irene, who lives in a protective bubble and has never left the building. Bruce tries to get the specs for the rings, but Dr. Blades freaks out and forbids it, thinking Bruce wants to weaponize the technology. Later, Repulsor sells the isotope to some criminals and promises to get the next item on the list, the gamma isotope. Meanwhile, Terry goes on a date with Irene, who snuck out of the clinic to see the beach. The scene is sweet, but Dana, Terry's girlfriend, gets jealous.
Sounds like your dream girlfriend. I hope you two will be very happy together.
Bruce discovers the villain's plan: combine 3 isotopes to create a powerful explosive. Batman goes to the nuclear plant to stop the theft of the gamma isotope and is ambushed by Repulsor. The fight is intense, and Batman ends up buried at the bottom of the ocean. Repulsor thinks he's won and goes after Irene. He reveals himself. It's Dr. Suzuki, who decided to use the technology to make money as an arms dealer. Just as he's about to attack Irene, Batman rises from the ashes. The fight takes them to a room with giant turbines. Batman remembers Irene saying the only thing that can get through the force field is sound. He cranks the turbines to maximum. The noise is so deafening that Dr. Suzuki is overwhelmed, unable to even cover his ears. He shuts down the suit to keep from going insane and is almost sucked in, but Batman saves him at the last second. In the end, Terry finds out Irene already has a special friend, and he's left high and dry. Inc., the villain who's basically a walking puddle of tar, is back. She's hired to sabotage a rocket launch and does a spectacular job of it. Batman shows up to stop her, and the fight is a special effects showcase. He tries to freeze her with carbon dioxide, but she vibrates and shatters the ice like it's nothing. In the end, she manages to bring down the rocket, which explodes, and she escapes. A frustrated Terry decides he's going to catch Inc. on his own this time, without Bruce's help. Meanwhile, the guy who hired Inc., some dude named Winchell, decides to rip her off. He pulls out a particle destabilizer gun and hits Inc. dead on, severely injuring her. She barely manages to escape. All messed up, she seeks out the only person who can help, her daughter, Deanna Clay, whom she abandoned years ago. Deanna is a girl who's all about appearances and is drowning in debt. Inc. explains she became a mutate to earn money to support her daughter from a distance. Now, Inc. needs a mutagen to heal herself and asks Deanna to steal the chemicals. The daughter hesitates, but the chance to get her hands on her mother's money is too tempting. For the first time, she calls Inc. Mom.
Do it for you, Mother.
That's the first time you've called me Mother.
Batman, investigating, discovers Winchell set the whole thing up and gets the account numbers where Inc.'s money was transferred. Max, Terry's friend, traces the account to Deanna. Batman breaks into the apartment and nearly captures Inc., but Deanna shows up and injects her mother with the mutagen, who recovers instantly. At full strength, Inc. lays a beatdown on Batman, even dropping a cement truck on him. As she's about to deliver the final blow, her body starts to dissolve. Deanna appears, cold as ice, and reveals she spiked the mutagen with a solvent. With her mom's account numbers, she doesn't need her anymore. Inc., betrayed by her own daughter, melts away into nothing. In the end, we see Deanna living the high life as a millionaire, but her peace is short-lived. She starts seeing strange shadows everywhere, and one of them morphs into a furious eye. Looks like mommy isn't quite dead after all. Wayne explains to Terry that a hormone called Serostone, which was just stolen, could revolutionize agriculture. Shortly after, Batman is stopping another heist at the same lab. During the brawl, Terry recognizes one of the criminals, Charlie Bigelow, his old partner from his teenage troublemaking days. Charlie just got out of prison and wants Terry to get back into the life of crime. Terry refuses, feeling guilty because Charlie took the fall for him back in the day since he was a minor. Trying to make amends, Terry gets him a job at Wayne Powers. But Bruce Wayne, always one step ahead, reveals it's all a setup. A company called Agrochem hired Charlie in prison to steal the Serostone. Terry confronts his friend, who doesn't take it well, and challenges him. Batman manages to stop the robbery, but during the escape, Charlie is exposed to the hormone and turns into a bizarre Hulk-like creature. Now deformed and threatened by his own bosses, Charlie asks Terry for help. The answer? A hard no, with advice to turn himself in to the police. But Charlie isn't playing around. He kidnaps his bosses and forces them to drink the Serostone too, which transforms him even further. Batman springs into action and during the fight knocks Charlie out with a single punch. When Charlie comes to, he's arrested, leaving Terry to reflect on how narrowly he avoided sharing his friend's fate. It's Bruce Wayne's birthday, but he's in no mood to celebrate. Suddenly, Talia, Ra's al Ghul's daughter, appears with an offer he can't refuse. Use the Lazarus pit to restore his youth. Bruce, ever the skeptic, refuses. But after struggling to beat up some low-level thugs and feeling the weight of his age, he reconsiders and agrees to go on the trip. During the treatment, however, Bruce notices Talia is acting incredibly strange. The truth is sinister. Ra's never died. He transferred his consciousness into his own daughter's body. The demonic mastermind's plan: transfer his mind into Bruce's rejuvenated body, stealing the Wayne identity and fortune all at once.
Ironic that your company and holdings will fund my new empire.
He straps Bruce into a mind transfer machine, but Terry, in disguise, figures it all out and frees his boss. Then the fight begins. Terry versus Ra's in Talia's body. The battle is so intense that the entire lab is destroyed and the villain is defeated. In the end, Bruce refuses the chance to be young again, accepting his own age. Talia's original body dies in the collapse, and Bruce mourns her loss. Back in Gotham, he is comforted by his partner Terry. Batman is called in to stop a rampaging gorilla. The gorilla attacks him, then escapes by latching onto a bullet train. Some zoologists soon appear and explain the mess. The gorilla, named Fingers, escaped from a lab after being injected with human DNA to boost his intelligence. The result? A pissed-off King Kong. Meanwhile, Terry, as Batman, investigates the lab and finds the proof: a tracker on the gorilla. This links everything to a man named James Van Dyne, a conservationist who's actually an illegal poacher. Then comes the plot twist. The now super-intelligent gorilla corners Batman. He explains that Van Dyne kidnapped his mother and sold him to be a test subject. He gives Batman an ultimatum: arrest Van Dyne by dawn or the city will descend into chaos. Terry removes the tracker and goes after Van Dyne. The gorilla shows up, points a finger or paw at the poacher, and accuses him. When the villain still has the audacity to insult the gorilla's mother, he runs out of patience and gets a major beatdown. The scientists want to reverse the process, but the gorilla refuses. He decides he'll use his new strength and intelligence to become a vigilante of sorts and hunt the hunters. Superman arrives with a VIP invitation for Terry: join the Justice League. It's like being asked to join the Avengers, but not everyone is thrilled with the idea. Big Barda and Warhawk look at him like, who's the new guy? The suspicion is palpable. During a patrol, Terry is minding his own business when a monorail goes haywire. Investigating the crash, he finds a sabotage device with tech that only the League has access to. Basically, the traitor is in the house. The proof comes soon after when a training tank malfunctions and nearly sends Aquagirl to a watery grave. Then things get suspicious. The League sends Terry on patrol in the middle of nowhere, far from the action. But Terry's no fool and, on his way, intercepts an emergency signal on the League's channel. Warhawk, who is keeping an eye on him, follows. They trace the signal to a building and suddenly, boom, an explosion takes out Warhawk. With Warhawk gone, all suspicion falls on Terry. He becomes the League's public enemy #1. But instead of running, he does what Batman would do. He investigates. He analyzes the recording of the incident and discovers the bombshell. The one who pushed the button was Superman himself. Shocked, he goes to Bruce, who, as always, was already prepared for the worst. Bruce gives Terry a small piece of kryptonite, basically the contingency plan he always has in case Superman decides to go rogue. Now, with the only weapon that can stop the Man of Steel, Terry goes after him.
Do whatever it takes, but make sure you stop him.
Terry arrives at the League's headquarters with proof that Superman is the traitor, but Barda and Green Lantern think it's fake news. They can't believe the world's greatest hero has turned to the dark side. But then, plot twist, Warhawk shows up, alive and well. He explains that he was suspicious of the emergency signal and sent his armor on remote control, a true master of strategy. The whole group goes to confront Superman, who swears he did nothing and is also investigating a traitor. But in the middle of the conversation, he attacks everyone, but it's not him. There's a bizarre alien creature attached to his chest, like a giant facehugger, controlling the hero like a puppet. Aquagirl, a telepath, connects with the creature and learns the whole twisted story. The creature is the last of its kind, captured by a cosmic collector who also nabbed Superman. The alien took control of the hero years ago to turn Earth into a giant nursery for its species. And things get worse. The creature's spawns start latching onto the rest of the League. Terry manages to distract Superman and delivers a shock to the creature latched onto his chest. With that, Superman regains control control and helps seal an underwater portal that was about to unleash a full-scale invasion. Goodbye, little critters. In the end, Superman is so impressed that he invites Terry to be an official member of the League, with his own ID card and everything. A distress call comes over the police radio. A giant is causing trouble on Applebaker Route 4. You don't need a GPS to know who it is. Batman responds and comes face to face with Big Time, who is now over 10 feet tall, looking like a video game final boss. The fight is intense, but the criminal manages to get away. Later, Terry is walking with Max when out of nowhere, a group of guys shows up, fights them, and kidnaps Terry. He's taken to a hidden location where Charlie is already waiting for him. Charlie tries to recruit Terry into the gang, but our hero refuses on the spot and throws it in his face that he's being used. Annoyed, Charlie locks Terry up, but Batman, even without the suit, uses his words and tries to convince the guy to turn himself in, promising a cure for his condition. For a second, it looks like it's working, but then comes the soap opera level betrayal. Charlie reveals his plan was to turn the Major over to the police and become the new crime boss. He played everyone. At that exact moment, the police raid the place. Batman, who obviously found a way to escape, goes after Big Time again. They fight on the bridge. Eventually, they both go over the edge. Batman manages to grab hold while Big Time tries to cling to him, but slips and plunges straight into the water. End of the line for the big guy. After dealing with Big Time, Terry has another headache. A crew called Cobra decides to steal a thermal bomb during a transport. Seeing that the kid needs an upgrade, Bruce, acting as the good old mentor, sends Terry to train with Kyrie, an old school martial arts master. At the dojo, Terry meets Xander, a highly advanced student who spouts some weird stuff about being bred to lead his people. Terry, being a good guy, convinces Xander to sneak out for pizza, but things go south when some nobody provokes Xander, who completely loses control and starts a brawl. Kyrie is furious and gives Terry a major lecture for taking the guy out unsupervised. Shortly after, Xander's guardians show up and take him away, treating the kid like a prince. The situation, already strange, gets even worse. Out of nowhere, Xander kidnaps Max and takes her to a mysterious location, leaving Terry desperate to save his friend. With Max kidnapped and Terry all banged up with fractured ribs, the only option is to run to Kyrie for help. Together, they manage to track Xander and decipher the address, which leads to a very original location, a toxic waste company. Once there, Terry finds Max held prisoner, and that's when Xander drops the bomb. Not the thermal one, the gossip one. He was genetically engineered to lead Cobra, a cult of lunatics who want to heat up the planet so reptiles can rule the world. While this insane plan unfolds, Cobra's goons threaten to splice Max's DNA with the dinosaurs, basically trying to turn her into a character from Jurassic Park. But before things get prehistoric, Batman intervenes. Unfortunately, he can't stop it in time and Xander transforms. Fortunately, Kyrie shows up and joins Terry in the fight. They manage to knock him out, but the ship starts to catch fire. Terry rushes off to find Max, and in the meantime, Xander regains consciousness. Realizing there's no way to escape, Kyrie ejects Terry and Max just before the ship explodes. Cobra is defeated, but it came at a cost.
Lily on your left side.
She was a good teacher.
The best.
The World Science Symposium is underway in Gotham, but the peace doesn't last long. A nutjob named Mad Stan crashes the event, shouting that technology is the root of all evil and threatening to blow everything up. Batman shows up to spoil the fun, and after a quick fight, Stan manages to escape. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a girl named Ro is desperately looking for her friend Zeta, who was captured by Mad Stan himself after a chase with federal agents. Batman manages to locate Stan's hideout on a boat and uncovers the bizarre plan. The villain has turned poor Zeta into a walking time bomb set to detonate in the middle of the city. With a little help from Ro, who feeds him intel on Stan's patterns, Batman intercepts Zeta at the health department, manages to disable the bomb, and frees the android.
Doc!
As soon as he's done, federal agents surround the place, but Ro appears out of nowhere and helps Zeta make a run for it. In the end, Batman is left pondering the strange alliance that was just born in the middle of all this chaos. After the showdown with a villain named Mad Stan, Terry's double life is starting to take its toll. His friend Max offers some blunt advice: come clean to Dana and tell her you're Batman. But Terry is hesitant and uses a flashback to explain why. In the story, he saved a little boy named Miguel from a fire. The problem? In the heat of the moment, the kids saw Terry's face without the mask, a classic superhero screw-up. To make matters worse, the Cobra gang, who look like they stepped out of a B-movie from the 80s, suspects there's a traitor in their ranks. To solve this, they have a brilliant plan: kidnap Miguel to extract the image of Batman directly from his mind, kind of like a low-budget Inception. The police even attempt a rescue, but the cops are corrupt, and the operation fails miserably. It's up to Batman to solve everything himself, as usual. He tracks the stolen vehicle and discreetly invades Cobra's base. Meanwhile, the villains are torturing Miguel with a crazy machine. But at the crucial moment, the image they manage to extract isn't Batman, but a Soldier Sam action figure. The boy's brain simply glitched and replaced the real hero with his favorite toy. Batman tries to apprehend them, but Cobra refuses to be captured and leaps into a pit filled with snakes. Back in the present, Miguel walks right past Terry without recognizing him, which leaves our hero much more relieved. It seems the secret is safe for now.